thought it was the intro slide, and we introduced ourselves instead of be introduced. So I'm going to start there. It might seem a little grandiose, but please don't be too taken aback by it. And basically, wanted to introduce myself a little bit and then find out who's in the room, and then ask you a question. Of the 2 questions that we were asked, which of those 2 questions would you rather do a deeper dive on? Because depending on which, we could either pick one tool or another that I brought, or if we find that there's a general interest in something else that's of interest, happy to kind of provide the tools and move on, as I described earlier. So my academic affiliation is through GW, and I have a variety of other, if I were to represent international development work, contracting kind of things, the World Bank and USA would be on there, but I was trying to depict relational places where I'm doing activity. Some of it is paid, other is not, and it includes in the technological space, developing standards for engineers to work with artificial intelligence and manage and monitor well-being. It's kind of related to meeting development goals, but instead of in a development focus, it's owners and co-parents, if you will, of artificial intelligence systems, kind of trying to use, how do we monitor the ripple effects of what is this tool or system beyond the space in which we're operating. Do a lot of work in various public sector stuff, and a space where I'm very excited on the yellow side of the chart is both. It started with a breakdown, in a sense. I was trained as an economist, and I'd seen a chart where GDP was tripling and happiness indicators remained flat over the last 60 years, and it would apply to both the UK and the US. And somebody who was at the time a lead economist in the government of the UK shared that he was starting a project to get the science of happiness out of academic papers and more widely socialized. And so he started this movement called Action for Happiness, and I kind of got involved in social behavior change, both personally, communally, and at scale. And that's led me down this path of what I now call regenerative work, where the model for development isn't scaling growth, for example, but is more about regenerative localism. So it's, some people describe sustainability as minimizing harm, and regenerative work is both restoring health, replenishing and restoring back to, so it's raising the bar from harm reduction to, and growth, which can be strictly extractive, to well-being. So to use a happiness example, fixing a broken arm reduces your misery. It does not make you an Olympic athlete. So the reduction of misery is a powerful development goal. And when we start thinking about regenerating, virtually all countries are maybe developing economies and not just the poor ones. That's a lot of talking, but so that has led to kind of different ways of diagramming the world and making sense of the world. And so I talked a little bit more about myself than I expected to, but I wanted to give you a sense in case you want to ask different kind of questions than the template that we're going to walk through, to just feel free to jump in there. I'd like to take a moment and ask us to go around the room, if folks don't mind, and say who you are, why you joined this group, and what your preference is for so with that, I guess, do I need to call on people, or can folks just, why don't I call on one person, that person calls somebody else? Can we do it that way? Or why don't I take the pressure off of it? I'll make it easy. Anthony, you're first, and I'll just go straight down, whoever I see first. Anthony Jones, can you go first? And everybody
it
else.
Always happens to me. I'm not sure why. I'm always right there in line to the speaker there. So
at the front of the class.
not sure. Luck of the draw. Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Jones. I'm calling from Columbus, Ohio, here in the United States.
Welcome.
I am the president and co-founder of a consulting firm, AJC Solutions, which I really left my full-time employment in 2019 to lead up. I help local governments with their economic development strategies, economic growth programs, as well as policy reforms, both here in the U.S. I've done work in Tanzania as well as in Eastern Europe, Macedonia, and Serbia. I am relatively new to this policy and learning category, so forgive me if I take a little bit of time to fully understand what some of the implementation aspects are of this work. So I'm here to learn really more than anything else, and I've understand the value of networks in my experience here in the U.S., but I want to be able to figure out how to do that more so with my new networks throughout the globe. So not sure if I answered your question, Michael,
You did.
but I would say my preference for question would be number 2. Some of the tools and structures to make it easier to learn and apply the learning to the work. I target local governments in my activities mostly.
Thank you for going first. Thank you for answering. And because we actually have quite a number of people and we have a short amount of time, I'll ask that we try and do this, in how about 30 seconds? So Tony, you got to share more, Anthony, but thank you.
It's a blessing and a curse. Thank you.
Well done, well done. So Lori, you're next. Lori Winter. You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
My Zoom failure, I tell you. Lori Winter, I am an independent consultant. Recently did some studying in adult education, and therefore I'm interested in the collective learning aspect. And I'm also preferring question 2.
Great. Thank you. Pascal, you're up.
Hello, everyone. I'm Pascal and from Chemonics. I work with the knowledge management team. More towards, I'll go question 2. Thank you.
Sure. Luisa.
Hi, my name is Louisa Angel Smith. I'm the Organization Development Manager with the IDEAL activity funded by the Bureau of Humanitarian Assistance and the SID. I'm interested in question 1.
Great. Daniel.
Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm a future public policy master's student, just interested in development. I am interested in question 2.
Okay. Thank you. By the way, I just shared one of the resources that'll be for question 1 and the question 2. We'll come back to it next. Patrick, please.
Hi, everyone. Patrick Somerville here from LINC. LINC works in about 20 countries around the world. We tend to approach the learning and networking activities from the lens of locally led development or strengthening local actors. I think we would go for question 2.
Fantastic. Kara, you're up.
Hi, I'm Kara. I'm with Mercy Corps, and I work in program development. So it's constantly looking at how we can harness the lessons learned and intelligence both of our communities as well as our staff in different countries. And I'd be interested in question 2.
Thank you. Logan?
Hi, my name is Logan. I am the Technical Program Manager covering the Asia region at Chorus International. And I'm primarily interested in question 2.
Okay. Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Caitlin. I'm an Economic Opportunities Specialist at Making Sense International. And I would just echo what Kara had said, where I'm trying to synthesize information both from our country-based teams, particularly in Ukraine and Sub-Saharan Africa, with some of our learnings at the home office. So question 2 for me.
Okay. Melina.
Hi, I'm Alina Shishkovsky. I'm a consultant, and I'm, as most people, I'm interested in number 2. I work with an organization that is a private foundation and looking at synthesizing a little bit more of their learning. So I'd be really interested to see some tools on how to do that. So thank you.
Okay. Megan.
Hi, Megan Scanlon. I am also an independent consultant. I work with foundations and development agencies, development organizations primarily on organizational capacity strengthening and civil society partnerships, and have a real interest in seeing how networks and collectives can operate more effectively. So primarily interested in question 2.
Okay. And Melina, did I say your name correctly? Melina?
Yes. Hi, my name is Melina. I'm one of the program associates for SID Washington.
Great. Thank you. Did I get everybody? Okay. Woohoo! Big applause. Okay. So question 2, clearly it is. I am going to hop around this in a slightly different way. So I mentioned that I like to think, by the way, that, and I'm not going to read this slide, but I like to think that the collective intelligence space is kind of like dark matter. And for those that are physics geeks, you know, EMC, Einstein kind of summarized the entire universe into this very elegant formula where there's everything is explained, everything works, except 94% of matter in the universe has not been detected with that way of thinking, and it's called dark matter. And what has been happening in recent times, and this is kind of some of the leading science in the world, is that, you know, there's a new foundational variable that's been identified, information, that changes whether or not you need to have all this kind of missing dark matter. And this new variable, for example, if you have a deck of cards, you know, the arrangement of the cards matters as much as the card, the physical structure of the cards. And so within human systems, and this is what I was getting at earlier, you know, we've had certain vocabulary for certain key variables, and there's 2 extra things that that have come up in recent times that become objects for our actions. So markets, governments, and hierarchies were the traditional. Participatory commons is kind of one of the things that the tool that we'll talk about today looks at groups and distributed groups. But I also don't want to neglect that there is in fact also this whole algorithmic intelligence, which is changing the rules of how all of these operate, as well as creating its own forms of intelligence. And so something to keep in mind. I see people are texting, chatting, and so I'll try and I'll try and monitor those, but I find I'm not so good at the multitasking. So you heard me talking about, and this was actually part of my, I hadn't intended to show these 2 slides. They were part of the intro that I thought would be shared earlier, but I'm realizing I have to reset the bar. You know, so there's a variety of cognitive tasks that happen, and these are all done in different ways. And the conversation, the space that I've been working in and kind of was hoping to talk with folks about is there's both formal institutions that have certain rules and properties, as well as these natural organic systems, and what are the interactions between them, and can we more accurately begin to describe what's happening in there instead of treating this whole space as dark matter. So one of the core things that begins to help bring visibility into this domain is this idea of what are the parts. And so the 2 elements that we're going to be part of the conversation today, we're going to be, the first was an article I shared about how to just do a particular form of system mapping. Now, I'm just going to ask that folks, how familiar are folks already with the idea of system mapping? Is it something people do, not do? Raise your thumbs up if you are. Okay, I'm not seeing a lot. So I'll just, we'll do a slightly deeper dive on that, because basically what this is a process that can be done. Many will do it individually, but the description in that article describes how it can be done as a collaborative project where you crowdsource, okay, who are the people that we're talking about? How do we put them on a board? How are they linked? Who, and in this case, the template that I just shared, which if you take a look at the page, I'm now switching screens. Is everybody kind of tracking along? Let me make this visible to myself. I'm seeing 4 people, and those 4 people include Melina, Logan, and Megan. So if you can kind of be the arbiters that if I need to look at somebody signaling or something like that, if you could catch my attention, otherwise I don't see the rest of the room. This particular tool, you could call it, is explained here in this particular article, and it was adopted by the World Bank after, and in fact, Eva, the co-author there, she worked there for a few years. I think she's now working for a contractor for aid, but it was adopted by the World Bank at the and taught by the World Bank Institute as a way of reducing project failures. And what some of the evidence behind this is that over 75 to 90% of all projects fail to meet the original goals. And so the question becomes, how can they reduce their failure rates? And one of the things that is a recurring blind spot is, do people have sufficient visibility into the human ecosystem in which they're operating? And so by going through this exercise that's depicted here visually, and again, we don't have time, we have 20 minutes. I expect at any moment somebody's gonna say, you're done, stop, go. But literally, this has a walkthrough of a process where you can sit down with 2 people or 10 people, and it has been applied, whether it is 2 people in Africa on opposite sides of 2 villages on opposite sides of a river, talking about how to manage the river, and who's involved and what do they care about, or whether it's at the World Bank. This is a paper and pencil kind of tool that enables people to collectively develop. You know, part of collective intelligence is dependent on how do we come to see our ideas together. And so by having a drawing exercise that says who are the actors, how are they connected, are they for or against positive use of this river, and what levels of power do they have, you begin to get a shared view that enables teams to move much more skillfully on the task at hand. Now, I know that's somewhat of a jump through this, but I'm now going to switch to a different view. And one thing I'd like to draw attention to about a system diagram is that it's not only the circles here, you know, the who is involved, but how they are related that becomes a source of tremendous insight. We have 30 seconds. And this other checklist, which we'll make available, begins to look at what are different ways of being related that then create different ripple effects in the way that the system learns or doesn't learn. So I know that was a lot of talking. I hope you got something out of it. I'll share both these tools, and hopefully you'll be able to connect with other people and start talking about whether or not these things are useful. These are like the A, B's, and C's, and there's enormous.
Our colleagues for leading those discussions. As we're welcoming folks back, a couple of things. One